As a young Christian, I was not at all interested in politics and not overly concerned about elections. I was not strongly connected to either party. In fact, the first president I voted for was President Carter, a Democrat. Even though I had grown more conservative and sided most of the time with the Republican Party, I was registered as an independent until about 8 years ago. As I've grown older, I now realize that if we who love Christ, believe and follow the Bible, had not given the political arena to the ungodly, we might still have prayer, Bible reading, and the Ten Commandments in our public schools. We might live in a country where abortion and homosexual marriage is illegal. I'm in my 60s now, and I'm thinking about those who will come after me, including my children and grandchildren. I want them to inherit an America as good or better than what I grew up in. One party's policies could dramatically change our great country for the worse. What I will share may offend some, but it is true and can be verified. I will share it with the earnest prayer that you will think deeply and make changes to line up your vote in November with an informed biblical worldview. Now, with that being said, let's compare the two parties' platforms. The following information is primarily from the October issue of Decision Magazine, FRC, or Family Research Council, and biblicalvoter.com, and other sources. I'll be comparing 14 different areas. Number 1, sanctity of life and abortion. The Democrats will force all taxpayers to pay for abortions, repeal the Hyde Amendment. They have repeatedly defended the Born Alive protection bills. Republicans oppose the use of public funds to pay for abortions and call abortion infanticide. Number 2, marriage and family. Democrats embrace redefining marriage, stating that the LGBTQ plus agenda, or these people have the right to marry. Republicans state that the cornerstone of society is natural marriage, the union of one man and one woman. Number 3, religious liberty and conscience rights. Democrats are silent on the right of Americans to practice their faith outside of their place of worship. Republicans affirm the right of conscience and for repealing the Johnson Amendment. They also pledge to protect religious freedom of all military members, especially chaplains. 4, the church and Christian organizations. The Democrat Party, many of their policies have greatly hurt the church and believers, like Obamacare mandating abortion services, activist judges approving homosexual marriage, hate speech legislation, the Equality Act pushing the LGBTQ agenda, and not allowing or outlawing sex therapy identity counseling for those desiring it. Their policies punished and muzzled pastors and Christian leaders and Christians from speaking out against deviant sex and unholy marriage. Republicans are in favor of full protection under the First Amendment for Christians to live out their faith, including free speech, writing to express their biblical convictions. Number 5, government. Democrats, their policies favor socialism. The national government or the state grows dramatically in power and makes more and more decisions and imposes these on the people, resulting in the loss of many rights and freedoms. Republicans, in contrast, favor smaller federal government and keeping all the rights listed in the Bill of Rights, such as the freedom of religion, speech, the press, the right to bear arms, etc. Number 6, educational choice. Democrats oppose school choice for families. Republicans support homeschooling, private or parochial schools, and vouchers to attend the school of choice. What about the courts? Democrats will appoint activist judges who are in favor of abortion, view the Constitution as a blueprint for progress, which can be altered or reinterpreted to suit their agenda. Republicans support judges who favor traditional family values and the sanctity of human life. They want to reverse activist cases such as Roe, Obergefell, and Obamacare. Number 8, military. The Democrats state, quote, "Our military is strongest when it includes people of all sexual orientations and gender identities." Republicans reject the use of the military as a platform for social experimentation, and they support the religious freedom of all military members, especially chaplains. Number 9, the LGBTQ plus agenda. Democrats, including Biden, seek to rapidly pass the Equality Act which push the LGBTQ agenda, including transgenders in women's bathrooms, locker rooms, and sports. Republicans oppose all this radical agenda. Number 10, human rights and global religious freedom. The Democrats, their priority is to use the U.S.'s influence to push the LGBTQ agenda and issues like this. In contrast, the Republicans strongly promote religious freedom for all people worldwide. Number 11, international relations. The Democrats, their policies over the previous 10 or more years have resulted in a weaker America and compromised Israel, favored communist China, and terrorist-speaking Iran, such as the terribly flawed Iran deal under President Obama. The Republicans, their policies have acted to restore American strength and sovereignty, strengthen ties with Israel, leveled the playing field with China, and stopped ISIS in its tracks. What about the economy? The Democrats, their policies favor a large government with many regulations that impede economic growth and job creation. They want to raise taxes and spend more for quote-unquote ambitious progressive programs. What about the Republicans? They favor cutting red tape and taxes, fueling economic growth and creating opportunity instead of handouts. An example of this was the past 2017 Opportunity Zones legislation, which helped inner city areas. By the way, there is no biblical support for government welfare or handouts. This is the position God gives to families and churches. What about energy? Democrats support the Green New Deal, which would result in doing away with the use of fossil fuels, which would result in getting rid of most of our current autos, resulting in much higher energy prices and stricter regulations. Climate change hysteria fuels much of their policy. Republicans, in contrast, support energy independence and actually achieved it. This also helped lower energy prices. Lastly, what about immigration? The Democrats. It's interesting to note that many of the older Democrats years ago went on record speaking against illegal immigration and even in favor of building a wall. But in more recent years, they switched to not enforcing laws against illegal immigrants and even giving them some of the same benefits as our own citizens. In contrast, the Republicans simply want the existing laws enforced, building a protective wall, careful examination of immigrants so that we allow in those that are legal, safe, and agree to respect our Constitution and laws. In answer to a friend of mine who stated she felt supporting immigrants was a very important issue because the Old Testament speaks a lot about being kind to the alien or foreigner, I want to point out that the Hebrew word here refers to, quote, one who had entered Israel and followed legal procedures to obtain recognized standing as a resident alien, like Ruth, the daughter-in-law of Naomi. This is from James Hoffmeyer's book called The Immigration Crisis, page 52. So from this brief comparison, you can see there is a day and night difference between the two parties. The Democrat Party has changed dramatically since the days of Truman and John F. Kennedy. Now, in many ways, it's in direct opposition to the Bible, whereas the Republican Party, while not perfect, is much more aligned with biblical values. I urge you not to vote for any candidate who is aligned with the National Democrat platform. Brother and sister, I hope you love our country and our freedoms as much as I do. We could lose many of these if we're not vigilant. Please watch the next video to hear why I changed 4.5 years ago from strongly opposing to now strongly supporting President Trump for re-election. Thank you, and may God bless your obedience.